the X Factor. And yes, I will be keeping the lights off for this review because this record's about as dark as it gets for Iron Maiden. I'll have to admit, it took me a little while in order to get to the artwork, but once I did, I was able to realize its value. This is obviously the alternate cover right here, so it shows Eddie like more in the distant there. He looks like a puppet, like a la Phantom Menace era Yoda, pretty much. Basically that sort of technology, only for Eddie and in an album cover. And yeah, the traditional like regular cover features Eddie being lobotomized. Here it's like done in the distance. I obviously have like an alternate version here. But I will admit, I mean, while it did take me a while to get into the artwork, I now really do appreciate it. It's a very different and original take on Eddie, and I always appreciate originality and like just a difference from the norm. So yeah, I really like it. So X Factor here is the first album not to feature Bruce Dickinson since Killers back in 1981. Bruce Dickinson left due to creative differences, and he wanted to pursue his solo career and release albums like Balls to Picasso, Accident of Birth, Skunk Works, Chemical Wedding, and 10 years after this release, after he rejoined Iron Maiden, Tyranny of Souls. So for this album here and the one after it, it will feature the talents of Wolfsbane vocalist Blaze Bayley, who is this guy right here. Right there. Yep, that is Blaze Bayley from Wolfsbane. And I forgot to mention, I'm actually in the dark right now, basically in tribute to this band photo right here. This band photo is fucking awesome. It's one of the most badass images I've ever seen in my life, and I'm basically doing my review in tribute to the photo. I forgot to mention that. So let's talk about the album and its content. Like, this album definitely has an interesting history behind it. It's probably among the darker records they've ever done. In fact, I would say that this is the darkest record they've ever done. That's why I'm sitting in the dark right now. And Steve Harris mostly writes about the songs, like, I guess, about a variety of different problems. I mean, there was a lot of turmoil going on with Bruce Dickinson, and I believe Steve Harris was going through a divorce at the time, so obviously he was not in a good mood during the album's writing sessions. And he hired Blaze Bayley basically to convey those tones. That's why his voice is deeper. Steve Harris wanted to get someone who had a much lower, deeper voice than Bruce Dickinson, and he really does convey that very well. And trust me, I used to be one of the Blaze haters myself. Like, when I was first, like, really getting into Iron Maiden, when I first heard Blaze's vocals, I laughed, I mocked, and basically trashed every element of Blaze's voice, but he's definitely earned my respect over the years, and his solo work is pretty fucking phenomenal. It's very solid stuff. He actually has a solo career, unlike another person. God, he doesn't have a solo career. It's just, it's garbage. That's what it is. It's fucking garbage. But anyway, we're not here to rant about Paul Di'Anno, we're here to talk about this album. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that Blaze Bayley can actually hit some really damn high notes. He doesn't show it on this album, but he's done it with Wolfsbane. I mean, listen to Manhunt, listen to Tough as Steel. Like, I'll actually send you a link to this one live performance he does of a Wolfsbane cover of Tough as Steel. Like, he just reaches an insane note at the end. I thought Rob Halford just came in for like a quick little cameo in the background, but no, that's really Blaze. He can hit some damn high notes, and I need to tell people about that. I mean, he should have done it for the albums he was with Iron Maiden. I think people would have respected him more. But anyway, I digress. Moving on to the album. So again, the songs convey a much darker tone. They convey a very haunting, sinister feel. Listen to a song like Sign of the Cross. Listen to that eerie intro with the very soft keyboards and the Gregorian chants and the haunting as fuck chant 11 saintly shrouded men. Where is it? 11 saintly shrouded men. Silhouettes stand against the sky. One in front with a cross held high. Come to wash my sins away. Right then and there, like right off the bat, you can tell Iron Maiden is definitely not lightened up or anything. They have definitely taken a much darker path. They're not in the mood to raise your spirits. They're there to basically drag you down to hell. I love how dynamic the sound and the volume is. Just the music just goes in like a very It's like a roller coaster of volume levels. Again, you hear songs like "Look for the Truth," "Sign of the Cross," "Fortunes of War," and they have these very quiet and atmospheric intros and just segments throughout that, you know, they're much more quiet, they're much more haunting, they're much more sinister. And then when you get to the heavy parts, it's just like boom, it's very loud. The best example I could think of that is "Look for the Truth," like I just mentioned earlier. The intro of that song is very quiet, and you definitely have to turn up the volume quite a bit, but once it gets going, like once it gets into the heavier part, the drums just go, and it just explodes. It just lights up like a Christmas tree. I mean, holy shit. But it's not just like lighting up like a regular Christmas tree, like ho ho ho. No, because of the dark tone of this album, it's like setting the Christmas tree on fire, basically. But yes, I love the dark nature of this album. I love how it's basically like the clearest step that the band has taken so far towards their more future sound. The sound that they'll take on albums like Brave New World, Matter of Life and Death, and The Final Frontier. This is the album that they released in the 1990s, closest to what they'll take when Bruce Dickinson returns to the band. The only thing different, of course, again, the style here is much darker. It's still the 1990s, and Blaze Bayley is in the band. Everything else, the tone's a bit lighter in the 2000s with Bruce Dickinson. So yeah, those are the only like three major differences. If I have any complaints about this album is that yeah, towards the end, the album starts to feel a little long. Like when you get to songs like "Blood on the World's Hand," "Blood on the World's Hands," and "The Unbeliever," the album starts to drag a little bit. I think if they'd taken those songs out, I would have been fine with it, because there's plenty of songs on here already. It's basically like with Fear of the Dark. I think they put a few too many songs on here, but the thing is, the songs that I did mention, "The Unbeliever" and "Blood on the World's Hands," at least they work with a cohesive theme of like bleak darkness. It's not like Fear of the Dark, which honestly, you had no idea what the songs were doing. There were many different like directionless ideas on that album. With here, the songs that I did say may feel just a little unnecessary, at least they pertain to a more overall theme. At least it feels like it fits on the album in some way, and it's not just there because it's just there. And one more complaint would be like, Steve Harris writes these songs as if Bruce Dickinson was still in the band, and I guess he's writing the songs a bit out of Blaze Bayley's range. On some moments here, it feels like Blaze is having to really strain just to sing into the range in which Steve Harris designed. It's like Steve Harris still thinks, oh, I guess Bruce Dickinson's still in the band, even though Blaze is a completely different singer. So, okay, awkward, I guess. But nonetheless, Blaze Bayley does try his best. It's just, there are a few moments in here which it feels like Blaze Bayley is just straining to get to some of the higher notes, which are expected to be hit more easily and fluidly by Bruce Dickinson. But yeah, overall, I have to say this is probably the strongest record that Iron Maiden has released in the 1990s. I think it's the most unified. It feels like the most cohesive. It feels the most united when it comes to overall theme. And the songs feel like they have a place on the album for the listener, and it doesn't feel directionless as No Prayer for the Dying or Fear of the Dark or the album I'm about to talk about after this. X Factor is definitely the most cohesive, and Fear of the Dark is cohesive too, but it just felt very directionless and like definitely like out of focus. Here, it feels like the band have put in a much more focused effort just to make it, you know, a whole effort, one in which you feel like the songs serve each other. They feel like they have a meaning unto themselves, if you will. I'm going to have to give this about an 8.5 out of 10. I really do love this release. I mean, it barely makes it into like the top 5 for me when it comes to favorite Iron Maiden albums. I would have to rank it about like number 6 or something like that. But yeah, I really do love this release. If you can look past the fact that Bruce Dickinson isn't singing on this album anymore, you're going to find some real value in this. I wonder how you guys are going to think if Paul Di'Anno were to have rejoined Iron Maiden for this album or something. How do you think that would have worked out? It wouldn't. Blaze Bayley definitely brings a lot of inherent value into this album, and it's a really satisfying, very fulfilling listen. There are many classics on here: Look for the Truth, Sign of the Cross, Judgment of Heaven, Fortunes of War, Edge of Darkness. There are a ton of standouts on here, and it definitely makes this album shine for me. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time for Virtual 11.